Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the CHEK Blog. I am super excited to have with me today Jator Pierre, founder of We HLC and CHEK Faculty member extraordinaire. Those of you who know the CHEK Institute know that we call ourselves a holistic health education institution. And so we think, or we try to think, very carefully about who our clients are and what it means to be a human being. If you've taken a class with Paul, or if you've read any of Paul's work, you've probably heard him call humans a system of systems. And he has a number of other ways that we, sort of conceiving of what it means to be a human and how it means to work with a human. But what I wanted to talk about today is that very idea, like how do we conceive of our clients, and how does that shape the way that we work with them? And how do we think of human beings? And again, how does that shape the way that we work with them? And I couldn't think of a better person to speak to those questions and that topic than Jator. So thanks for being on today and having a little chat with me.
Thanks for having me, James. And what I heard you say is I was the only person you could find to chat about this.
That is absolutely not what I was saying. What I think, Jator, is you have a very unique take on what it means to be a human. You're very thoughtful about your own life as a human being and your clients as human beings. And so to me, you are a natural, not last and only guest, but a very natural guest.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Good to be here. Man, what a fascinating question that is for me. What does it mean to work with a human being? What does it mean to work with clients who obviously are human beings, unless you're training some form of other animal, which that happens. So that's kind of cool.
But we don't really teach people how to work with German Shepherds or...
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. But my experience around working with human beings, working with myself, maybe more importantly, is that we're extremely multifaceted. And that's not groundbreaking. I think that's probably pretty obvious to most of us. But what might be interesting around that perspective is my experiences in my own coaching in the past and my experience of other coaches, and that's not a criticism, it's more of an observation, is that a lot of us, including myself at times, we can become very myopic around who and what we're working with. And when I say myopic, I mean we become very hyper-focused on kind of singular items about what is going on with this person, i.e., let's say knee pain or digestive issues or thyroid issues, whatever issue you want to throw out. We can become very myopic and focus on that issue or that symptom and often forget that is coming from a global picture, that whatever symptom or issue that we're talking about or challenge that we're talking about when we're working with a human being is multifaceted and inclusive of a larger context. And I think at times we forget the context and we get very focused on the content. And so when we're looking at the context when I'm working with somebody and maybe diving into myself, I want to pay attention to the whole picture of how that person is treating themselves. Now, of course, we have the 6 principles and we have the 4 doctors. And within all of that, we have our mental and emotional state, which is exquisitely important. It's exquisitely important to how the person decides to treat themselves, how the person decides or even thinks, and I'm going to use a word here that I don't really agree with, but I'll use it anyways, how the person believes they deserve to treat themselves and how they believe they deserve to be treated, are a part of this larger context that I think sometimes goes unexplored, because it's very easy to focus in on the singular issue and forget that there's a driving force behind that, our mental and emotional state, our decisions around our relationships and who we decide to be in relationship with. And all of these things are underlying expressions of our programming, essentially, our programming from our childhood, our programming from our family of origin and how we saw our parents interact, how we saw our parents relate to us and others, our teachers, other students or our brothers and sisters. All of these things play a role in who's sitting in front of us when we're in the coaching seat, and also who's sitting in front of us when we're looking in the mirror, sitting in our seat, looking at ourselves. So maybe said in short, when I'm working with myself or with other human beings, I do my best to remember a saying. And the saying for me is very hard to remember. And I'll share why it's hard to remember in a second. The saying is, would I be willing today to notice what I typically don't notice? And that is really hard to do, at least for me it is. And one of the reasons it's really hard to do is because the way that most of us navigate life, inclusive of myself, is through familiarity, is through the lenses that we've always looked through, i.e., this is my client, it's just physical, or i.e., this is my client, it's just nutritional, i.e., this is my client, it's just gut health and brain health, i.e., this is my client and they just need mechanical work, whatever that is. And I'm not saying any of those things are better or worse. What I am saying is, how do we allow ourselves outside of our own lenses to consider, wow, what's out here? Wow, what's out here? Wow, what's out here? And that starts to give us a more global picture of who we're working with as a client and also who we're exploring as a human being. So I think that kind of answered your question.
Yeah, I mean, so that really, I mean, there's a lot of different. I'm realizing my question was a lot more complicated than I originally envisioned. Because we've got sort of different levels of abstraction, right? So on the one hand, we're talking about human being, which is sort of a very general, species-wide thing. Then talking about persons, what it means to be a person, and then talking about a client. And your way of talking about lenses, I think, really helps me maybe to sort of refocus the question, because they're really sort of different, talking about human, person, client are really different lenses, right, that we seem to apply perhaps in different situations. And when you have your client lenses on, oftentimes, as you said, these client lenses tend to focus and really limit the ways we look at the person, the actual person, with a greater context in front of us. And so, yeah, because you are the practitioner that you are, you start to look through your gut health, right, lenses.
Right.
And because you're doing that, you don't see the context of the person behind it.
Yeah, I'm going to take a stab and say, I think you said that better than I did. I gave you spieled everything I said down to very focus, which for me is cool. And
because I was going to say, so let me ask you a different question and get at this, get your perspective on this differently. What is the person? I guess we probably sort of understand some of what you'll say here because there's a context, but the way we think about a person, is the person their beliefs, but not the, well, let's say meat suit? Is the person the body, or is it some kind of combination of those two?
Well, you might get me in trouble with this one, James.
That's my primary goal, actually. Really,
it seems to be my lot in life. So, I can share what my perspective is on that, and I hope all of us can consider our own perspectives too. I think, as a very quick side note, I think it's really important for each of us to learn to listen and respect others' opinions and ways of seeing as a way to maybe affirm self, also as a way to find where you disagree, which is okay, and as maybe a guidance system to, well, what feels right for me? So I can share what feels right for me, at least today. The person sitting in front of me, you or myself, for me, I think it's a combination. My experience is that in a lot of teachings and a lot of philosophies, there is, you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions, you are not your body, which I think from a perspective is interesting, and I also think is true to a certain degree and also false to a certain degree. For me, I am my thoughts, I am my emotions, I am my body. But when I'm saying I am, what I really mean is those are parts of who I experience myself to be. So I experience myself to be my body, my vessel. I experience myself at times to be my emotions, my thoughts. And I don't necessarily, for me, want to become unattached to those things. In my experience, maybe that is a very, 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 very high level way of seeing reality. Maybe let's just say maybe that's the ultimate, God lens on this, what's going on here. Which is cool if that's true. And I'm a human. And for me, it's been a really important process for me to go through this perspective of, yeah, maybe that is true. Maybe I'm not my body. Maybe I'm not my thoughts. Maybe this is all an illusion. Maybe that is all the ultimate or absolute truth. But it's also important for me as a human being to be a participant in my life. And it's a very strange thought to me to think that the design team, whoever or whatever that is, that the design team would design me in a way to come here so that I wouldn't feel my feelings or my emotions. If I didn't want to feel or experience, perceptually, I would just be dead and go back to all being one or all source. But I'm here, and I'm here to have the experience of being here. At least that's my truth. So I want to feel my feelings. I want to feel my sensations. I want to feel my experiences. I want to buy a fast car and drive it like a madman. I want to enjoy my ego parts. I want to also observe all of that. I want to be the observer of the part of me that is connected and also is unattached to my thoughts and emotions. I want to observe the part of me that is connected and also observing my thoughts. I want to be the part of me that gets to say, wow, that's really interesting. Why do you like fast cars, Jator? What does that represent to you? So I think, as you said, we're a combination of all of that. And that's what feels true to me. And in my experience of mental and emotional or spiritual work, however you want to frame that, is many people go down that path, or actually maybe not many people, people go down that path. And because you hear and learn maybe these higher perspectives, whatever that means, from a God point of view, let's say, there is a part of us then that wants to be that and be seen as very developed if we own these perceptions. Everything has a purpose. Everything is the way it should be. I am not my feelings. I am not my emotions. And that's cool, but how many of us get to that place authentically is a real slippery question for me. Because it's easy to say that, and it's easy to facade that. I don't know how many people actually reach that place authentically, and quite honestly, I don't want to. I want to enjoy being the observer of self, and I want to enjoy being the participant of my life, because my feelings and emotions and experiences are extremely important to my head, to my heart, and to my development as a human being. And that doesn't mean to develop higher than anyone else. It just means to widen my spectrum of experience. So
yeah. So that was really fascinating, because I guess I hadn't, of course you throw a monkey wrench in there. I hadn't really sort of anticipated that you would talk about the subjective experience of what it means for you to be a person. And so that's really fascinating. But let's flip that around and say, when you are working with a client, so what does it mean to be working with a client / person? What is person other than the person that is Jator mean?
Wait, it's not all about me, James? Come on. Yeah, so I love that question. That's an awesome question. When I'm working with a client, something that I try to do my best at is back to something I said earlier, which is to notice what I typically don't notice. To focus on things that are outside of my normal realm. So yes, I'm into mental and emotional work, right? I'm into gut health and brain health. Those are kind of my what makes me salivate. So it's very hard for a part of me not to be closed in on that. So when I'm working with somebody, I do my best to invite myself to broaden my spectrum and allow a place where I can feel into what the person is presenting emotionally, mentally, physically, intuitively, and spiritually, and feel into what they might need, where we might go together, and allow them, interestingly, to be the guide, to put them in the leader role, which is really interesting, because I think from a lot of our perspectives, allowing our client to put in the leader role feels like we're taking our job away. But there's a really interesting thing that I've experienced with human beings, inclusive of myself, is a lot of us thrive and crave autonomy. And the interesting thing about putting someone that you're coaching into the driver's seat or into the leader seat, at least from my perspective, is it gives them a sense of autonomy. So it's kind of like if I offer, well, here's 5 things I found in our work together, or here's a thing that I picked up in our conversation together. Is this a direction you want to go? Then they feel in control. And to the ego, that's a very powerful place for us to be. It can be very motivating. It can also be very supportive to self. And that autonomy can help create a pathway that we're doing something for us. We're not now doing something because the leader, i.e. the coach, is telling us what to do. And that goes back into this idea of the collaborative coach model versus the expert model. So who are my clients? Interestingly enough, my clients are me, one, first and foremost. Two, they have different experiences, different life experiences, different values, different perceptions, and different ways of living. And I think that's something to be honored, not trampled upon. So what do I mean by that? It's not my job for me to turn my clients into me. It's my job to support my clients' learning and growth into turning themselves into who they want to be. And I get to, dance back and forth with them around these topics of them learning what feels right, clear, expansive, contractive in their own lives. So essentially, they're learning to become the parent of themselves. So one thing that I try really hard not to do in my coaching, and who my clients are not, they're not my children. They are right by my side and partners or brothers and sisters in our work together to step forward in whatever the direction is that they want to go.
Yeah, so that's great. That was really helpful. We've talked a little bit about this stuff in previous episodes, but the idea of treating a client as a person first and foremost by recognizing their autonomy and sort of embracing that as part of the coaching process is that's really fascinating to me. And one of the first things that came to my mind is this could be a really great way to continue to learn about the decisions that they've made in the past that may have contributed to the challenges that they're facing now, right? So it's almost like by bringing the client's autonomy to the front and center, you're opening up further opportunity, sort of like diagnostic opportunities, to put it in a very sort of clinical fashion.
Yeah. Yes. And something in my experience comes with that autonomy, which is, I think, what you gave voice to. There's a sense of safety and comfort and control, quite honestly, that comes with that autonomy. And that, in my experience, opens up a lot of dialogue. And helping someone learn their own autonomy and learning how to be their own parent or their own coach, my experience of that environment, then people want to work with me. They want to work together on something in a path that they're kind of leading, and I'm co-piloting, because interestingly enough, by them feeling some sense of autonomy and acknowledgement, they're not feeling a lot of what many of us feel as children, which is we don't have control. We aren't the leader. In fact, everyone outside of us knows more than we do. And that's a really empowering place for us as coaches and us as clients to get to. I have a coach, and there's a double-edged sword to this, which is very interesting. When I call my coach, there is a part of me that sits back and says, I just want him to give me the answer. That's the little boy in me looking to pay someone to get guidance, right? So that's there for sure. And at the same time, I know my coach, my experiences of my coach, and he 95% of the time refuses, and essentially refuses to give me answers and only asks me questions for me to find my own answers. And that is beautiful and frustrating, but what it does for me is it challenges me, and it challenges me to learn to care and parent and take care of myself, even through someone else's questions. And it gives me the opportunity to see this part of me that says, God, can't someone just tell me what to do? Can't someone just lead me? And I hear it all the time from my clients too, like, Jator, can't you just tell me what to do? I can tell you what to do, but it's going to go in one ear and out the other. Because, I did a video on this that I thought it was really cool. Is that there's researchers have looked at caterpillars, right? And a caterpillar goes into its cocoon, and the caterpillar has to go through this whole metamorphoses, completely breaks itself down to be rebuilt into this butterfly. And the beautiful, interesting thing about this is in research, they've cut those cocoons open before the butterfly itself has made its way out. What's fascinating about that is the butterfly comes out and the butterfly can't fly. That's a metaphor, a symbol of me telling a client what to do or how to live life or what's going on in their life or what to fix. They can't fly on their own. And the very interesting thing about that research is that the butterflies or the caterpillars that are left in their cocoon, and they're left in there to struggle, to push against this hard thing, to feel tension, to feel pain, to feel suffering. Eventually they break out of that cocoon and then they come out. And when they come out, they have built the musculature to fly on their own. And that would be the metaphor for asking questions, shining different angles, and allowing clients to struggle, be awkward, be in fear, be in pain, be in tension, that everything doesn't have to be all right, happy, and smiles. For us to get there authentically, maybe it takes the struggle. So my job and who I see my clients as are caterpillars and butterflies within cocoons that are struggling and learning and growing just like I am. And my job is to support them through their struggle and learning to find their own way out of their shells. Because I can't cut it open and give it to them. Because then they can't fly on their own. And then they need me for the rest of their lives, which I don't want to create codependency. I want to help them learn how to fly on their own, which also, interestingly enough, teaches me lessons about me flying on my own.
Yeah, and I guess in many ways, trying to figure out where client autonomy comes into the coaching process, right, is part of the big challenge, right? Because I can imagine somebody saying, well, look, they set their goals, right? I'm just writing their program and, putting them on a specific diet and all of that, but they have autonomy in setting their goals. I'm just helping them with their goals, right? So I guess some of it is a matter of degree of where the client autonomy figures into whatever coaching model that you're using. But it does seem like you've hit on something. To me, it feels like you've hit on something really important, because the less autonomy a person has, well, in any situation, right? Here we're talking about coaching, but in any aspect of their life, the less like a person and the more like a thing, in a way, right? They become. And so it does strike me that it really does feel like autonomy is essential to what it means to be a person.
Yeah. Yes. And the pieces of the coaching, maybe from the collaborative and expert model, one way to continue to help create autonomy for clients, even when you're being the expert, is being really mindful of your language. And said in another way, what I could say to a client is it okay if I put on my expert hat now? They then have the autonomous decision to say yes or no. They say yes. They're still autonomous because they're making the call on, do they want me to play the expert role? Which still perceptually feels like they're in control. So yes, there's shades of gray, and it's one reason why I'm methodical with my language, because I think there's a lot housed in a language and a lot housed in how we subconsciously use words in certain situations. So I do my best to be very conscious of my word choice and how I frame things so that I ask permission. Asking permission to clients is a huge way, even when you're in this expert role, to keep them in the driver's seat perceptually. And can be very powerful to any style of coaching that you want to do, whether it's lifting or postural correction or gut health or movement. It's how do I keep empowering this person to empower themselves on this process? And I am a guide and a guidance system, and the amount of guidance that I offer gets tuned up or tuned down based on asking permission in that moment. So when I start, if I start with a client, I have a new client starting tomorrow. I'm going through all of his paperwork and kind of putting together the initial program. As I'm going through that, I'll ask them, how do you feel about this? Which one of these feels best for you? Here's 4 places that I thought we could start. Which one speaks to you the most? Oh, well, I really dig that 30-minute walk in nature. And, I actually really don't want to do this gut reset yet because I just don't have the space. Boom. Awesome. Because we're starting somewhere. And there's so many threads to this sweater that, are there ones that we can pull that will have a bigger effect? For sure there are. But we're also looking for a long-term change process, which for me, the increasing likelihood of that changing is us supporting our clients where they are ready to change and have the willingness to do so.
And it seems like the other part of that is that you only find that when you really sort of give your client the autonomy that you've been talking about.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. It's, in my experience, less of us enjoy being told what to do. In fact, we're kind of defiant to that in part. At least I know I am. So a very kind of subtle backdoor to that is invite people in. Okay, cool. You don't want to do that? Beautiful. What would you like this work to center around? What feels motivating to you? Because as CHEK practitioners or HLC coaches, quite literally, let's just say we have 5,000 places to start. Somebody might be overwhelmed with an exercise program, an assessment, and postural correction. Okay, cool. But they might be, I am fascinated by what you said about water and a shower filter and a bath filter and some good salts. Oh my God, that I could do that. Boom. There's no rush. there's no rush. And the more that we kind of rush and push, my experience is that the less actual movement we get, because we got to start where they're ready to start. At least that's my perspective.
Yeah. So this is really fascinating. So if somebody wanted to learn more about this collaborative coaching model, is there something that you recommend that they read? Something that you recommend that they watch?
Yeah. There is a great manual out there. The manual is from a certification I've done. It's called Well Coaches. And it's about motivational interviewing. It's about autonomy. It's about the collaborative model. I think really good ideas and easy to read, and I really enjoy their perspective. It's the collaborative model is really. I didn't know that I already did the collaborative model till I started to read, this manual. And in fact, a lot of what's in this manual, I didn't have the language or the structure around. Oh, that's what you're doing. So it's really interesting to see another person's perspective on. Oh, wait, I didn't even know I was doing that, but that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, and that's great. Good. And they can find this just by, say, Googling.
Yeah, Google Well Coaches, and there's a cert, and also you can just Google Well Coaches and manual, and manual is excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, great. Well, this has been a really fun conversation, and it triggers that philosopher that's still sort of inside me somewhere. And I hope, and I'm sure actually it will be a topic that we revisit many times in the future. But thank you for satisfying my urges to explore these topics, and for really putting a practical spin on it too, because I think there's a lot of food for thought here about how CHEK students and anybody else who listens to this kind of works with their clients. Yeah,
and thank you, James. And one last piece that I think for me is important. Who are our clients? The more we learn to, at least in my perspective, the more we learn to understand ourselves and dive into ourselves and find compassion and empathy and kindness toward ourselves, the easier that is to do and be with clients who are struggling or failing or not doing what you want them to do, because you start to gain a broader perspective and context to they're not failing, they're struggling, or there's a challenge, or there's some underlying need that isn't being met. It helps to really open up your lenses as you start to open up your lenses toward yourself. And then you can become much more understanding of others. And I think that is a very powerful place for a coach to be, is not in agenda, not in frustration, not in you need to do what I need you to do, but coming from a place of you are a human being with a broad amount of experience, and I'm here to support you in that process, no matter how slow or how fast that goes.
Yeah, I imagine that is a lot less pressure filled both for you and your clients.
That's how it feels for me, man. And I know you've been one of my clients, so you'd probably give voice to it.
I feel no pressure whatsoever around you, Jator.
As we both awkwardly laugh.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh God, that was pressure, Jator.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Jator. This really was great, and I encourage everybody to find Jator on the YouTubes, because I know Jator has a lot of other videos that he doesn't share with us here at the CHEK Institute.
I'll keep sharing.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yes, keep sharing, and we'll have you back on here again soon to share with us again.
Sounds good, James. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jator. We'll see you.